So to me, it feels like we are in a stalemate and we're just kind of waiting around until the next piece of bad news comes out, whatever that piece of news might be, whether it's a bad CPI report or the Trump tariffs actually come in or unemployment ticks up or shrinking GDP or any multitude of these things. You know, we're in a point right now where sales are on pace to be down about 10% this month from this time last year. I think Toronto is having one of their worst sales months of all time, if not the worst sales months of all time. I know it's kind of similar to the US right now. And I think they're doing bank bailouts in China now. And I don't know what this piece of news is going to be, but it's definitely not looking like it's going to be positive. It's looking like whatever the next piece of news is going to be is probably going to be a pretty big negative piece of news. And we're just kind of waiting until that happens to at least provide some clarity within the market, because I'll tell you, January was a very good month in the real estate market. The market was good. Homes were selling. It was very busy. And then literally as soon as February came and the Trump tariffs started being talked about, the market just died. It was like a ice cold bucket of water got dumped on the market. So I think people just need some clarity on whether or not that is going to happen before they start making decisions on what they're going to do with their real estate situation. But yeah, pretty much up until this point, signals have been very mixed, and now the signals aren't looking mixed anymore. Now they're just looking bad. So I think something will happen, and the result will most likely be, like I've said before, that interest rates come down hard and fast. Because you can already see the governor of the Bank of Canada, Tiff Macklem, basically, he came out and gave this speech that was extremely negative, being like, essentially to sum it up, he said, if Trump tariffs happen, our economy's screwed, is basically what he said, you know, to make a long story short, right? But I think the reason why he said that is to kind of prep Canadians for, if that happens, we're going to cut interest rates hard and fast. And if that does happen, everyone will already be indoctrinated into the belief that this is going to be, 10 out of 10 terrible. Therefore, everybody's going to give him the green light to do that without there being a lot of pushback. And I think that's why he's saying what he's saying. But yeah, just anecdotally, it's really hard to say whether or not the Trump tariffs are the result of low sales. I think there's a lot of variables going on in the real estate market that has caused that situation. But it's interesting that, January would be a really good month and then suddenly it would die at the beginning of February, because if it weren't for the Trump tariffs, I would say that people are out of money. Because it seems like a lot of the people I'm talking to, most people are, at the end of their rope when it comes to savings. They're in line of credit, they're in credit card debt. Not a lot of people have cash reserves right now. Very, very rarely I talk to somebody that isn't in some type of debt at this point, other than mortgages. So if it weren't for the Trump tariffs, beginning to be talked about, I would just say that the reason why sales slumped is because people are broke. But we're going to have to see whether or not that is actually the case, because if the tariffs don't come in, is some demand going to return to the market? And I think that's yet to be seen. But yeah, there's a lot of bad news out there right now, like tons of bad news. And I really do feel like we're just kind of waiting around for the next piece of bad news to provide clarity on where we're going next. But I will say this, despite all of this, I'm still holding all my stocks, right? I still own real estate. I'm not selling anything. And the reason being is that you never know what's going to happen, right? And typically when you think something is a sure thing is usually when you're making the wrong decision. That's usually when you lose money. And usually when you make money is like, I don't know if this if this is the right decision, but the numbers seem to make sense. The thesis makes sense. So I'm just going to dip my toes into this. And then when it goes up 2 years from now, you'll be like, oh man, I wish I bought more. I wish I bought 2 of them, or I wish I bought 10 more, or whatever the case. That's typically how it happens. But whenever you think something is 100%, this is going to happen, is usually always what never happens. And I mean, if you just look at the stock market right now, you have like the Buffett indicator at all-time highs, right? I mean, people are wondering why has like the largest cash pile he's ever had. He's probably looking at his own Buffett indicator, right? You have the price to earnings, which is, near all-time highs. This one is just overvalued, but not strongly overvalued. This one is, extremely overvalued. This one is fairly valued. This one is very high risk, very high recession risk, this one says. This one looks like it's about to start taking off, right? So, I mean, you go look at any indicator of the stock market, they all say they're overvalued. But again, it's very hard for me to click the sell button on that, because you just never know what is actually going to happen and transpire out of all of this stuff happening. And what happens to real estate if interest rates end up dropping 1% or 1.5% over the next, 4 to 6 months? And I think, of course, it'd probably be very long-term bad, but in the short term, that might kind of save things, at least in the short term. So you just never know what's going to happen. But what I'll tell you is that it does look bad. I have save searches set up for foreclosures. There's new ones hitting the market every single day. You guys saw my video on the $1 million loss in Abbotsford the other day. That one was also a foreclosure. People are largely broke and out of money. People are stretched thin. A lot of sellers are in trouble at the moment. And if you look at a market like Surrey Central, where there is an absolute glut of inventory and more coming this year and more coming next year. And I think the sales ratio right now is pacing for like a 3% sales ratio in February with all of this inventory already there. The outlook is not that of a good one at the moment, to be completely frank with you guys. But yeah, we'll have to see what happens and what piece of bad news is going to come out next that is going to break the current, I guess, balance of the real estate market, or at least give some ultimate clarity of what is going to happen. But I do stand by my opinion that I think the result of that is going to be lower interest rates a lot faster. But again, I have absolutely no idea, and I'm just guessing, and this is all for entertainment purposes. If you want to chat with me about buying or selling in the Fraser Valley, there's a link in my description. Otherwise, hope you enjoyed this candid video of me just kind of rattling off some thoughts at the top of my head. Subscribe, like the video, appreciate you for being here. I'm that Agent Kelly, and I'm making moves to move you. Peace.